Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany and this is my presentation on Rett syndrome. So Rett syndrome is an X-linked neurodevelopmental disorder. It affects 1 in every 15,000 women worldwide. It was discovered by pediatric neurologist Andreas Rett, and he discovered this when he noticed 2 of his patients had similar handwriting styles and they had normal development in the first months or years of life, and then they start showing regression in this development. So he concluded that this was a metabolic disorder, and he called it cerebroatrophic hyperammonemia, and it wasn't until 1983 that it was actually discovered that it was a neurodevelopmental disorder. So this disorder has 4 different stages. The first stage is stagnation, where the patient shows a developmental delay after having a few months or years of normal development. They can develop microcephaly and they have hyperthermia. Then we go to the second stage, which is regression, and they start showing motor skills loss, communication skills are also lost. They have repetitive hand movements and breathing problems, and they may or may not have seizures. If they do have seizures, they will get worse, or they will continue during the pseudo-stationary period, where they will also show hand dysphagia and hand apraxia. And in the 4th stage is motor deterioration, where patients become dependent on a wheelchair, and they also start showing metabolic problems. Rett syndrome has 2 types of 2 classifications. We have classic Rett syndrome and typical Rett syndrome. For this presentation, I'm going to focus on classic, but I'm still going to explain a little bit of a typical. So classic Rett syndrome is in the methyl-CpG binding protein 2 gene, and it's more common in women. So it's X-linked, and it's lethal in men, and usually it can cause stillbirths, spontaneous abortions, or the boys that are born with this condition, they sadly die during the first months of life. And we also have a typical syndrome, Rett syndrome, which has 2 types of variants: the Rolando variant with the FOXG1 gene, and the Hainfeld variant in the CDKL5 gene. Like I said, the MECP2 function, this protein has a function in the brain, and it was also discovered that it binds to RNA. And this function this protein is responsible for several functions in the brain, such as neuron synapse, alternative splicing, and gene regulation. When the protein shows a mutation, we can commonly see a substitution from the alanine to valine, and this affects the affinity, stability, and the flexibility of the molecule to bind to both the C-methylated and C-unmethylated DNA. The mode of inheritance, it's an X-linked random mutation. It's dominant, so women only need 1 X chromosome to be mutated in order to develop the disorder. This would be homozygous. Heterozygous women can have less severe symptoms if they show bar bodies on the X chromosome that has the mutation. And as I stated before, this syndrome is lethal in men. They don't have another X chromosome to mute the mutated X chromosome unless they show mosaicism, but this is a random occurrence, so they usually die. As I explained. So this pedigree is the one I used during my project, and for this pedigree we're going to assume that every female with an heterozygous mutation is actually a carrier, and they have a bar body on the mutated X chromosome. So Mariana over here, she had a random mutation, as I stated. Not necessarily someone from her family needs to have it. It was just a random occurrence in her. And so because she married this man who has no mutations, she was able to pass it down to both her daughters. As I stated, all three of them are carriers, and her son doesn't have it. Because Juliana here married someone without the disorder, she passed it down to her daughter, and as I stated, the mutated X chromosome, she passed it down to one of her sons, and he died shortly after birth. Her sister Aurora, she had children, or she married someone with the disorder, but he had mosaicism, so he didn't necessarily exhibit this disorder. This is why he was able to live past infancy and be able to reproduce. Their son, he had also, like his cousin, he inherited the mutated chromosome from his mom, so he exhibited the mutation. He was a stillbirth. And his sister, their daughter, she has the mutation. She's homozygous for this disorder. And then she remarried and had 4 more children with her now husband. She's heterozygous, so she didn't necessarily pass down the mutation to all her children, but with the exception of this little kid right here, who also passed away. So genetic testing there are 3 types of genetic tests. We have the MECP2 sequencing test, the known familial analysis, and the deletion and duplication analysis. The MECP2 sequencing is used to identify the mutated gene. The known familial mutation analysis is in the case that someone in the family has a disorder, and this is the one that's used in case of prenatal testing. And this is to see if you have a deletion or a duplication analysis and you're able to be your carrier. When and who should get tested? Well, this test is optional, and it's only done for women with a family history or women who are pregnant and have a family history of Rett syndrome. Early detection is important since the parents can get a better understanding on this disorder and can prepare for all possible outcomes. And also women thinking about starting a family, if they fear there's someone in their family who has Rett syndrome, or if there's a lot of deaths in young baby boys in the family, they should also consider getting a test to make sure that they aren't carriers. Where can I get tested? There are 2 companies that I chose. One is Molecular Diagnosis Laboratory and Ambry Genetics. I think you aren't able to see everything because I'm not over here, but they have all 3 of the tests that I explained right here: the full gene sequencing, known familial mutation, and the lesion amplification analysis. And these are all my references. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful night.